Welcome back to Farming Simulator 25, and welcome to a brand new, fresh version of an episode from the Things I Wish I'd Known series, which I made probably 18 months ago now. This is all to do with forestry. Having recently dipped my toe back in the water, I thought it might be a nice time just to top this back up again and refresh it, because a lot has changed in the time between the time that the video came out and now. A lot of it still is the same, but there are some other little bits and bobs. Again, as per the last time, this is a disclaimer. If you are used to playing forestry on Farming Simulator 25, there may not be anything of any use to you here. Please hang around and have a look. You never know. But this is genuinely aimed at the people who are new to the game, new to forestry, haven't done much on there before. It's a little bit of a helper for them. The other thing is, this isn't a console only, whereas the last one was. This is now going to be a mixture. The majority of mods that have been added onto this are available on the mod hub for both console and PC. However, there is I think 2 script mods we'll be using, and I will highlight those as we go through. So without further delay, let's get on with it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to delimb a tree, which I know might sound really obvious, but this is the one thing I think on my channel that I've shown and has probably had the most amount of comments about, that people didn't realize they could do it. Now in 22, we used to get our chainsaw and we'd sit on top of the tree and we'd run along it in a sort of vertical way that way. It doesn't work as well that way now. It generally sort of misses limbs out. The way I found works best is I'll get my second chainsaw, because this is a non-mod, this is base game. We'll angle it downwards. I generally then stoop down, I'll start firing the chainsaw up. We'll come in at this sort of like 45-degree angle, and we will just run along the tree, and we'll carry on going. We're sort of using the tree as a bit of a guide, but I'm also, my thumbstick is sort of following the line of the tree rather than like kind of going straight over it. And you'll see we've basically taken every limb off the tree. Easy as that. The next thing we'll look at is how do we cut this down to size. So before we use the script mods for anything, this can be more for base game console players who haven't got any sort of script mods. We need a measuring stick. Now the easiest way I used to find to do this was I would use deadwood tree. So these aren't quite as good, because these are, what are these ones? These are the spruce trees. I tell you what, let's chop down, because these ones are generally don't weigh as much, and it'll actually allow me to show you another tip as well. So when we are cutting our trees down, don't waste anything from terms of the tree, and I'll come around this side so you can see it a little bit better. Get as low to the ground as you can, because the most valuable part of that tree is this section here, so you don't want to waste any of that. Basically the biggest part of the width and the most weight. When we're cutting as well, and you're holding down your, for me it would be Y and B on an Xbox controller, because that's what I use for my PC, to crouch. When you start firing the chainsaw up and then cutting, if you hold down your left shoulder button, you can then let go of everything and it'll keep cutting. So if you're cutting a particularly thick trunk, it just saves you having to hold the buttons down. Nice little extra tip. Oh, I've just crashed into all my stuff. I'm going to just super strength this out of the way of all of that. 2 seconds. Hopefully without disrupting too much over there. That'd be rather tragic, wouldn't it? Right, excellent. Thank you very much. Right, let me turn the super strength back off. So total tree here is 30.5 meter at 1.8 ton. So without super strength, we ain't moving this anywhere, are we? So what we'll do is I'll just delimb this bit here, so just to make our lives a little bit easier. And we'll come along here. Boing. If this was a deadwood tree, there's no real value to them. Now, depending on how you want to start off your logging and forestry journey, if you're going to do a survival challenge where you basically just start with your truck and a chainsaw, you are going to have to do it in the sense that you're not going to be able to carry anything, and you're certainly going to have any machinery to lift anything heavy. So you're going to be cutting the smaller ends, you know. You're not going to be lifting up these sort of logs here, which are 240 kilos, even though they're only 0.6 meters length. Sorry, they're only 2 meters in length. They're too heavy for you to lift, so you're not going to be able to get them on the truck. So the other thing, though, if you then upgrade and you end up with one of these little midlife skidsters, then you've got the option to then start loading these things onto either a trailer or your truck. The easiest way then to get a regular size is to make yourself a measuring stick. So we will cut, let's just call it that. Let's see what happens. And our weight here is 56 kilos, which is perfect because we can pick anything up that's up to 200 kilos. So we'll chuck this onto the back of, oi, says missing the truck. Up you come, my friend. Drop that onto there. So let's just check basically at the end. Lovely. We don't want something that's that long. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. It's all right to just edge out maybe a little bit. So we will get rid of that bit, which is nice. Gets rid of the end for us. So there's nothing, no little bits to tidy up. And there we have a measuring stick. So all you would now do is, let me pick this one up again. We would take our measuring stick against the tree that we've just toppled. Throw it down on the floor. And you know now, lining that up sort of roughly like that, that is where you're going to want to make the cut so that you can fit all these into the back of your truck and away you'll go. This follow-on tip to this is rather than then doing this, making the cut, moving the stick down the tree, making the cut, if you can, and it all depends on space, if you can, put a number of trees together. So here's one I made earlier. We nip over here like this. What you could then do is where you've got your 3 trees like this, they're all roughly angled up together. We're going to come along here. We know then that is roughly where we want to be cutting. This is going to fit our truck. We'll make a cut here. We'll make a cut there. And last but not least, just need to get a little bit lower. There we go. Make a cut there. And it'll just save you a little bit of time. Having spent hours and hours and hours doing it the wrong way, I can assure you this is a much more efficient way of doing it. The more trees you have up in a line, the more you can make a cut and save your time. Which then leads us on to how do we get our trees into a line. One of the easiest ways, if you've got the right setup, is going to be either shoving them with a blade. So you generally need obviously a tractor for this because you're going to need the PTO. Or we use the winch system. But for this, I'll switch over to the keyboard because it's just a little bit easier because I've got a couple of conflicts with the keys we're using. So we will pull the winch up like that. We shall run over to our first tree. We will connect it with, I'm guessing B is it? Yes it is. Connect that there. And you'll see at the top left then, attach to another tree with R. Jump across there. And click onto B, and off we go. That is obviously still you'll have your controller. It used to be for me. I think it was right shoulder and B on my Xbox controller, but we've clearly done something else with that these days. So then we can control the winch from our tractor and from the blade. And if we go with, where are we? It is K and M. Is that? Yes. You'll see there, winch is tightening, and off we go. And we're going to pull our 2 trees into a position that's going to allow it. And all you're doing there really is just lining up multiple trees into that line so that you can then start moving your dead wood or whatever, like light wood, measuring stick along and making a good load of cuts. Here we have a bunch of our skid steers. So the thing with these things is to remember is, although they pretty much look the same, we've got a couple of base games on either end and then a couple of mods in the middle, there are slight differences in the height that they can achieve, and it's really difficult to show it from this angle. But basically, the Bobcat will put that slightly higher. The issue with all of these is your Kubota is a far, far heavier machine. So it's going to be able to hold a little bit more. It's going to be a lot more stable when it's moving around, especially if you've got a bunch of logs on there. It's going to throw the weight around. Whereas when we've got this little Massey down the bottom here, this thing is going to be balancing and tipping all over the place. The other thing you've got to remember before you spend your hard-earned cash at the shop is, will they clear a trailer? Are you going to be able to get them in there? And then you've got to think about the makeup of your forks here. So sometimes you can make it so that you could get through the middle of the gap there. That's generally the easiest. And have your forks either end. It all depends on the trailer and the amount of options you're going to get, which then is going to lead us to little tips and tricks around thinking about ways to pick up the logs. Now, if you've gone all out and have got yourself one of these, then you don't really need any help. This thing is absolutely massive and it is absolutely awesome. But if you're on a survival roleplay, you are not going to be doing this for quite some time. You might, however, end up in a situation where you can get one of the little skid steers. Certainly if you're using any of the loan systems or used equipment. So if we hop into our Kubota here, one of the issues with using the log forks on these things, and I need to remember I haven't actually attached the hoses, there we go. It's simply that you can't get quite enough of the logs into the grips and the jaw. There's only so much you're going to be able to do. Now I might be able to trick it into getting me two, but probably not there. So I'm going to be going basically back and forth on this, getting one log at a time, and that's the best I'm going to be able to hope for. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want a nice realistic way to play, which I often do, then I'm pretty comfortable with it, but that's what you're going to have to do, especially with these sort of heavier, thicker logs. There is an alternative. Now, when I first did this was something that actually ended up going out on Mr. CLP's channel, and he gave me credit for, which was incredible. And back then, we were using a slightly different mod. Now, there's tons of them available. Now, this one is it's one of many, so I'm not going to kind of tell you which ones to use because it doesn't matter. You can find them on the mod hub. But basically, it's anything that's got either it's a bale fork or a pallet fork that has got the ability to have the straps on them. And you can see there I clicked my right thumbstick down and think I was clicking on the strap, but it's not going to do that because of my stupid keybinds. Now what we should be able to do is if we bend the pallet fork this way and drive up to our pile of logs, get that as low to the ground as we can, and hey ho, we're picking up all 3 logs. Now, again, it all depends on if you like the realism, because that is not realistic, is it, ladies and gents? But it all depends how much of a grind you want this game to be. And that is one of the easiest and best ways to deal with logs, is using these strap systems like this. Is it unrealistic? Obviously, yes. Is it that much cheating, though? Is it as unrealistic as picking up a 2-ton tree by hand? I would argue not, because in theory I'm pretty sure I could do something like this in real life. What you have to be aware of is the weights on what you're picking up here might come into play, especially if you've gone with, like we had mentioned earlier, one of the smaller skid steers. Which then leads us on to our next point of telehandlers, and it'll be the same for most of the skid steers, I think, lock out at that position. But there's one thing to note with the telehandlers is that depending on the model, and you'll see here the Fendt and the JCB can go beyond the 90 degree. So we've actually got the forks going backwards, which makes it a lot easier. Whereas the Merlot can't. And it just makes it that little bit harder to pick up the logs. So again, when it comes to forestry, not all equipment is equal. Now this next bit is quite a simple one. It all depends on how you like to do it. Now I generally never get to the point in my forestry saves where I'm using these things. I'll primarily end up going with the massive Volvos. But if you do use any of these harvesters, there is something to remember. So if we turn on the harvester like we have there, and then we will turn on the header, you have then that automatic grab line will appear on there for you. So I believe on this it's the left shoulder and then it's the down on the D-pad. And what that will do is it'll line it up and you can cut there. Now, you think, I think that's great, and that's going to grab it, and off you'll go, and you'll start then cutting at the various lengths. Great stuff. However, you are wasting about, you know, a third to half a meter of the tree. Always push the thing down to the bottom, make the cut as low as you can, and it'll get you that extra little bit. And the most valuable part of the tree is the bit that we've just saved. And then we just start harvesting. And these things are great. You know, there's so much of a time saver. But again, it all depends. How are you playing the game? What sort of kit do you want? And you're going to be able to then just make the quick adjustments, get a nice sort of log pile sorted out. Now, whether then you're going to come along with your blade and push these all into one location, whether you're going to come along and use one of the whether you're going to basically come along and use the winch and drag them over, whether you have got something set up where you can use concrete blocks and you push them all into one place that automatically pushes them into one nice pile. There's a couple of different ways you could do it, but these harvesters are a great bit of kit if you want to spend the money or you want to have your save running that way. Okay, so basically the last tip now we'll talk about will be one that relates to a script mod. So if we cut this tree down here, and I've had some issues with this mod. When it works, it's one of the best mods for forestry out there. But I'll show you now the issue I'm having with it. So this is a mod called Forestry Helper. It's a script mod, so it's only going to be available on PC, I'm sorry, for you console legends. And it's by Farm Sim Tim, and it's a brilliant mod, like I say, when I get it to work properly. So you don't have to crouch, by the way, either. So if you've got the tree suspended or is caught up on anything else, you can still just walk along at that height and you're still going to be able to delimit. It's not actually, you don't have to be crouched down. I crouch because it's easier to delim when I'm crouched. Oh, that's another thing as well. I'll show you now when we come to the end of the tree. For some reason, if you run with a chainsaw, it's really, really slow. But if you run with a chainsaw when you crouch, you'll go faster. How bizarre is that? And that's been like that since this game... Whoa. Since this game came out. Really, really strange. Right, anyway. So, let's get to the bottom of this tree. So, the way this mod works is... If I jump across so you can see everything at the top left there, you'll see the start cutting, and then indication mode at the moment is weight. And the weight limit would be 200 kilos. If I change that then by pressing C and we go to indication mode as length, and we can then change the desired length. At the moment it's on 2, I'll leave it at that. What this is then going to do is give us this little purple point within the tree, whereas basically it sets the exact cut, and you'll see the chainsaw snaps to it. So if you come level with it there, it doesn't really matter if you are. The cut will always be essentially perfect 90-degree angle. And what that should give us then is when we look at this, it's in a perfect 2-meter spruce log. Now, that bit is sensational, and I don't think that's cheating because I would have a tape measure if I was cutting trees, so it wouldn't be a major issue. However, if I come back up to here and I change the mode to weight, so we set it at 200 kilos because that is what the basic weight limit is for us to be able to carry without using super strength. It sets the purple bar there, right? I will then cut it as we did just now. And let's see what happens. So if I now have a look at this, and for that time it's done it, but it's even done it at 176 kilos. So it's wasted 24 kilos of length essentially. I'll try that again because what it normally does is it gives me like 208 and stuff, so it's quite it's the only part of the mod I don't really get. I wonder if let's try it at an angle and see if it gives me a different cut. Maybe I need to be like perfectly straight. Oh, it does. It didn't used to do that. I'm sure it didn't. But that's still, well, that's only 162. How bizarre. I don't know why it's getting smaller all of a sudden. Shouldn't be doing that. So if I come this side and cut this way, we'll try a different approach. see with a different chainsaw if it causes me any issues. Nope, still 164. How bizarre. Well, what's weird is I did now take a minute ago, and I did this with a different tree over there, and it would not cut below 200. It was cutting at 208. But there we are. When the mod works, it's sensational, because now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't fancy trying to lift with my bare hands 170 kilos of tree to be able to put into my truck. I don't know, I'm trying to lift that one because I'm never going to lift that. But there. And what you would then be able to do is, if you really love the grind, then you can then start loading up your truck with these sub 200 kilo logs. And off you go to the shop to make your millions and start your forestry journey. And eventually end up with something rather special, like this Volvo trailer, where you can then go out and collect your logs. The forestry journey is superb. It's a part of the game I really love, and I get it. It's Marmite. It's very much the whole one man's vinegar is another man's honey. I do get it. It's not for everyone. If you can, get a chipper. Don't waste these ends, because chipped wood, for some reason, I don't know if they've nerfed it now, but it used to be a real money maker if you turn the wood into chippings rather than the logs. Each tree as well is got a different sort of benefit to it and weight to it. So some are better for productions, some are better to sell. I'm not going to go into which ones are which, because off the top of my head I don't know, and there are videos that are dedicated to that, probably from people like Farmer Cop, so go and check them out and you will figure that out for yourself. But I hope for the beginners amongst you, the new forestry people out there, I hope there's something you can take from this video. I hope it's been an enjoyable one, something quick and simple, and I do hope you give forestry a try, because although it's not farming, it's a very nice part of the game, if you ask me. So we'll call it a day there. Thank you very much for watching. Leave me a like if you've been taking anything from it. Give me a comment, let me know your thoughts. But as always, be happy, stay safe, and we will speak again soon. Take care.